The Browns have one of the best rosters on paper based on name value alone in the NFL. But last year, we learned that sometimes when you think you have enough, even almost too much, you can easily come up short, whether it's due to an incomplete build that's missing some key pieces, or by acquiring a lot of players who are great but not great fits. In football, it's been proven time and time again that there is a tremendous value in the flexibility, durability, and robustness that overkill can provide. So with that in mind, I'm going to put together 5 trades that the Browns can make that will make them officially overpowered. Now, sure, are some of these trades going to be a little bit unrealistic? Yeah, you can categorize them like that if you wish, but I do think there is a possibility that all of these trades could possibly happen. And the first trade I'm going to talk about is a trade that I've talked about before. Yes, Jamal Adams to the Browns for a first, a third, and we could throw in David Njoku or somebody like that to kind of satisfy and put this package over the top in order to land a player like Jamal Adams. Now, why in the world, when the Browns just drafted Grant Delpit, they just signed Karl Joseph, why in the world would the Browns pay such a heavy price for another safety, Quincy? It makes no sense. That's dumb. Get out of here. No, here's why the Browns would do it. It's because the Browns need a signal caller on defense. Number one, Jamal Adams is a signal caller on defense. That means that he can align people correctly, get the plays out, do all the things that Christian Kirksey and Joe Schobert have done over the years that they currently have nobody to do, because right now the Browns are in a situation where they're going to have a rookie linebacker, a second-year linebacker, or B.J. Goodson in charge of that role. And honestly, none of those are great choices for a signal caller on a defense like this. Yes, you could possibly have Myles Garrett, but from the defensive line, it's just a terrible position to have him have that responsibility, and I just don't see that happening. And then if you look behind them in the secondary, the other position where you can have these defensive signal callers, you don't have veterans. Karl Joseph hasn't really had that responsibility before in Oakland, and he's not a player who has that kind of reputation that you would feel comfortable giving those reins to. And Grant Delpit has the ability to do it, but he's another rookie. So as a signal caller, Jamal Adams makes a ton of sense. Also, Jamal Adams makes a ton of sense because just watch Jamal Adams' tape and watch where he lines up on the field. Jamal Adams is more of a hybrid linebacker safety than he is a straight strong safety, which means that you can have him roam around the field and be in a lot of different areas while you still have Karl Joseph back there, while you still have Grant Delpit back there. You can play all 3 of these guys on the field at the same time, and with the current system that the Browns look like they're going to run with a lot of DBs on the field, it would make a ton of sense to have a guy like Jamal Adams in that role. This is a guy who is elite against the run, who does well against tight ends, and can play slot corner if you need him to. And those are all pivotal roles that the Browns need filled at a high level in the AFC North. And when I put the video out a few weeks ago about Jamal Adams, a lot of people were talking about, well, we have Grant Delpit. Grant Delpit's skill set is completely separate from Jamal Adams. Yeah, they called him Baby Jamal at LSU, but that's not an accurate description of his play style. Grant Delpit cannot help you in the box. Grant Delpit is not going to be somebody who's going to be a tackling machine in the run game like a Jamal Adams would be. Jamal Adams would actually fill in those holes in Grant Delpit's game, which would allow Grant Delpit to develop because he would have a great 1-2 punch there on the defense. So when you look at it like that, not only are you going to bring in a player who is going to be, and when you look at it like that, not only are you going to bring in somebody who's going to immediately enhance something on the defense that is weak, he also is somebody who is going to be crucial to the development of one of your most promising prospects in Grant Delpit, because having Jamal Adams there as a help for Grant Delpit would be an amazing benefit to the development of that young player, which makes the modest price tag, quite frankly, for Jamal Adams, a 1 and a 3, and a player like David Njoku, who has a ton of potential, but you don't really have a huge role for him in Cleveland this year. It makes it a fair price to pay, because not only are you going to make your run defense better, not only are you going to be much better against tight ends, you're also going to be helping develop what you hope is a all-pro player in Grant Delpit, which, again, does more good for the defense long term, even if you can't keep Jamal Adams more than 2 years. I personally think a trade here for Jamal Adams makes a ton of sense for the Browns, especially if they pair it with a Clowney signing. It would do a lot to make this defense kind of fit the bill that I feel like they're going to need to fit this year. And then you talk about overpowered. The secondary is already pretty flexible without an addition like Jamal Adams. With him, it makes the secondary just insane. This is a trade nobody expected to see on this list. O.J. Howard for a second and a fifth. Now, why in the world would the Browns do this when they already have David Njoku and Austin Hooper? Because they want to be overpowered and overstacked at tight end. They also have Harrison Bryant, who looks like he could step in and play a little bit in his rookie year. But adding O.J. Howard, putting him next to Austin Hooper, it would be insane. It would be insanely overpowered. It would be a Pro Bowl team essentially on offense. It would help you in the run and pass games as far as blocking goes, because both those players are very adequate blockers. And then just like, how would you defend that as a defense, right? You got Odell and Jarvis as your wide receivers. You got O.J. Howard and Austin Hooper as the tight ends. And then you have Nick Chubb in the backfield. That's just a nightmare for a defensive coordinator. I don't know how you stop that. It's a pretty deadly combination against any defense in the league. And yeah, that is why trading for O.J. Howard make a ton of sense. Now, this isn't going to win a lot of awards. It's going to be a highly scrutinized deal. And honestly, I don't even know if I would do it. But if we're talking about trades that can make the Browns overpowered in one area specifically, this would do it. O.J. Howard is available. You could trade for him and have one of the best tight end duos in the NFL for not that much of a price. And maybe for 1 or 2 years, that might be enough to win a Super Bowl. All right, so this next trade, admittedly, it's not an overpowered trade. It's just a trade, I think, or a type of trade that I think the Browns need to make in order for this defense to not have the potential to be the mess that they could be, because they don't have veteran leadership in certain places on this defense. That does make me a little bit nervous. So Sean Lee's just a veteran linebacker I'm throwing in there. This could be a ton of other veteran linebackers, but Sean Lee is the most prevalent guy. Seeing as he's old and disposable to the Dallas Cowboys, but would provide some value to the Cleveland Browns. Now, again, not an overpowered move. This will not in any means make the Browns overpowered at linebacker, but it will help the development at linebacker with the two young players that you have there, a promising Mack Wilson and then a rookie Jacob Phillips. This is the kind of guy that you want in there to help them develop. Also with Sean Lee, since he's not going to be such a big ticket item, he's disposable enough that once it comes time to replace him during the season and allow Jacob Phillips to get reps, you can replace him when the defense is ready for it. So he's a guy who's kind of like a Scotch tape solution for cheap. C.J. Mosley for a third and a fifth might not sound realistic, but I think this could definitely happen. He's getting paid a ton of money for a linebacker. I think the NFL is starting to realize paying linebackers a ton of money is about as bad as a move as paying running backs a ton of money. So I think there's going to be a huge whiplash on these kind of contracts that linebackers are in that are very expensive, especially for a team like the Jets, who aren't going to win a lot this year, in my opinion. I don't think they're going to be that great. I don't think their defense is going to be that great. And I don't think they're going to see the value in C.J. Mosley anymore. And I think they can come to that realization earlier, maybe during camp, and decide that they want to move on from him and gain some assets. Now, why would C.J. Mosley make sense for the Browns for a third and a fifth? Well, it's because he's still a very good linebacker. He's also a veteran, and he allows Mack Wilson not to carry so much of a burden, and also allows Jacob Phillips to develop behind him. Also, my biggest concern with this Browns front seven is stopping the run. I do think they have enough DBs in order to stop the bleeding in some areas. I don't think they're going to be top of the league, but they can stop the bleeding against the pass, against the runs where I worry about them. That's where C.J. Mosley does his damage. And where else can you get a Pro Bowl caliber linebacker for a relatively good price that knows the AFC North as well as C.J. Mosley does? Specifically, he knows the Baltimore Ravens, the best, and that's the team that you're going to have to beat. So having him on your defense when you need to stop a offense like the Baltimore Ravens would be a good idea. Him being there would again allow Mack Wilson to kind of run around and make those more athletic, instinctive plays that he showed a real knack for last year, and allow him to expand on that game instead of having him transition into the middle linebacker role, where I think he's less suited to play that early on in his career. Does it make the Browns defense overpowered? Yeah, if you add it with some other moves on the defensive line, it certainly does. Couple that with the offense that the Browns hopefully are going to be able to churn out this year, and that makes the Browns an overpowered team. Now this is overpowered. Aaron Donald for 2 first-round picks, a third, and Olivier Vernon. Now, is that an expensive price to pay for Aaron Donald? Yeah, kind of. It's more than what Chicago paid out, I think, for Khalil Mack. And Khalil Mack would be younger than Aaron Donald is. So, yeah, it's an expensive price to pay for this. Will Aaron Donald even be available? Now, I think this is more possible than some people give it credit for. Aaron Donald makes a ton of money. He also is playing for the LA Rams, who are building around Jared Goff, and I think they hit a peak in that rebuild. I don't think they're going to get much better than what they were 2 years ago. I don't think they're reaching that level. I think they're going to be at that, 8-8, kind of 7-9 valley for years to come here. So if you're the LA Rams, you spent all these draft picks going in on the Jared Goff kind of rookie deal window, and now you're starting to pay for it because you have less and less assets in order to rebuild around Jared Goff, which is handcuffing your team right now. So how do you do that? You trade your best player on defense for a ton of assets in order to help spark a rebuild offensively for the LA Rams. Now, how does this help the Browns? Well, this is obvious. You, at the very minimum, get a defensive line that has Myles Garrett and Aaron Donald. Imagine if they signed Clowney on top of this. Now, that would be a ton of money dedicated to the defensive line, but oh my goodness, in this specific case, it would be worth it, because those three on the defensive line is just absolute murder to any offensive line that has to block it, because these are three guys who are versatile, can play very good at any position on the defensive line, inside and outside. And when you're an offensive lineman and you have no idea who's coming where, and they don't really have to disguise it in order to confuse you, it's just a nightmare. You don't know who to block, and then when they come, they're elite players like Jadeveon Clowney, Aaron Donald, and Myles Garrett. And then you would have to imagine, right, they're going to have to double team Myles or do something with him. They're also going to have to do something with Aaron Donald, and then probably something with Clowney, if they can get Clowney on top of all that. And then you got guys like Sheldon Richardson and Larry Ogunjobi who are flawed when you ask them to kind of carry a defensive line. But when you ask them to just handle some one-on-ones, they can do some damage at that point. This is a true defensive line where you don't really even have to blitz a lot. And in a division where Baltimore likes to take advantage of that with how they like to slip tight ends out on the seam on you, that's very important. Just think about how versatile and dominant these guys can be at various positions in the defensive line. And think about how much damage the 49ers did, and this would be with better pieces than the already good pieces that the 49ers had last year. And then you start to see the nightmare for any offense that has to play this defensive line. I mean, it almost wouldn't matter who you have at linebacker if you have a defensive line with two of those players, Myles Garrett and Aaron Donald, and with three of those players, it really ain't go. You could put me out there as middle linebacker, that defense will be good. And again, in a division where things like stopping the run and winning the line of scrimmage are at a specific premium, because you have teams like Pittsburgh who are going to be run dominant with an old quarterback. You have a team like Baltimore that dominates through the ground. You have a team like Cincinnati that's going to try to dominate through deep passes. Getting pressure is going to be at a premium in this division, and putting together the best defensive line possible should be a number one priority for any team in this division. This would be one of the scariest defensive lines in modern history if they could put it together. And it's actually possible they can do it. Now, will it happen? No, it's probably very far-fetched. It'll be a ton of money in there. But something to note is that you could bring Aaron Donald in, have him for 2 years, and then cut him without losing anything on the salary cap right when Myles Garrett's $25 million on his monster extension is ready to kick in. So it's definitely possible. You could sign Clowney on a 2-year deal. You could keep Aaron Donald for 2 years, and then Myles Garrett would be on his rookie deal for 2 more years. And you can definitely do this. And the cap number will be astronomical on the defensive line front, but it would be actually worth it. But that's my thoughts on trades that the Browns can make to make this team overpowered. Let me know your thoughts. Are there any trades out there that you think the Browns should make? Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload. And have a great day and have a good night.